Thank you for inviting me. And what today I'm trying to do is to tell you our journey. Journey doesn't mean that we reach our goal. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we started. And unfortunately, I have to talk about myself a little bit. Ahmad Jawad. I came to, somebody asked me about when I came to Edmonton. I said in 1986, I'm a graduate of math and physics, U of A, and an MBA student. So that's also important. When we talk about AI, I think math is very important. So solving problems always was part of the things I like to do. And this is how I started my companies. I'm also part of, like Gail mentioned, part of the community. When I say we community, not only the tech community, we're one of the things that you see on there, the Edmonton Research Park Business Consortium. So Mehadi is the director also with me on the board. Our goal is to promote innovation in Edmonton. Doesn't have to be one campus. Campus could be everywhere. Knowledge and sharing of knowledge is very important. So we invite you when we have events to come to the Edmonton Research Park, the Advanced Technology Center. I know Technology Alberta have some sessions sometimes or some basically events. So we welcome you to come. Also, I'm on the board of the Industry Advisory Board for Computer Science. And other things I'm involved in really as a company who's involved in education, my goal is to ensure student success with our software. And we're talking about student success. You guys are graduate students and university students. We're talking about K to 12. So schools basically from pre-K all the way to grade 12. And let me see how this works. I want to mention what DOCEO means. So we did, Gail mentioned the conference we had March 20th, and the presenter said DOCEO, right? So, I mean, it could be DOCEO, right? So now DOCEO is a Latin word, and some of the words are there in terms of what it means: enlighten, teach, show, make bright, almost augment. So you could see it's AI, right? So AI is in terms of saying it's not making decision, it's showing us ways of looking at the data differently. And this is what the name DOCEO came about. Another thing, even with my company, Intellimedia, before, with DOCEO, Intellimedia works with many school districts across Alberta in terms of collecting data. But really the goal of collecting data is to provide knowledge for teachers and staff to make decisions. And this is, you see kind of the representation here. Data is all over the place. We want to bring it down to a point where we're able to be getting decision made from the knowledge that we have. And when we have the knowledge, we have responsibility. And we believe AI will bring us to that knowledge faster, right? And this is part of the reason I have this presentation in there. Now, what's AI? Seriously, in front of all those people here. But I had to put it. And then, and also too, I was in a course a few weeks ago, and then they put basically, generative AI and the deep learning is true. And when we did our March 20th conference for educator across Alberta, ChatGPT, it's like, sorry to compare it, it's like the Kleenex of basically. So ChatGPT is AI for them, right? So, because it's easy to use, and it's a tool that we need to basically at one point, how it could be introduced in schools and so on. Now, for us, our interest, and we'll talk a little later on, is machine learning or ML is basically the focus, because we're interested in prediction and recommendation. And we'll talk about that a little bit down. Now, I'm sorry, I'm just going to move this here for a second, or you could see it. You could see it in there. So, sorry? Yes, here. Let's put that down. Perfect, worked. I could make the whole screen. Okay, I'm not going to move it. But, okay, perfect. So, and one second here. Okay. Now, so what you see in there is the type of data exists in schools, right? And when you think of school, you think of grades, right? Attendance. But really, there is lots of data on the left-hand side there in terms of not only data to do with outcomes, but behavioral support, all of those kind of things that teachers are collecting about students. But also in school, there is HR and finance and spending money on education. All of this affects student learning, how much resources we're investing in the school. At the bottom there, you see engagement data. And engagement data is really the feedback that's coming from stakeholders. We're talking about teacher, parents, staff, and even students. All of this data is going to inform the practice of the educators, be it the teacher, even the parents, and also the planner at the school. Now, before this, AI was not in the middle for us, and we're trying to put AI in the middle, meaning before decision is made about prediction, and we could predict without AI, right? Because we have knowledge of the students and so on. But really what we're trying to do is use all the data in the schools to predict challenges. And the challenges could be students not coming to school for those reasons. And also recommendations, and all of recommendation meaning suggestion or strategies for students to succeed. All of this data that we're talking about already exists in the school. They're collecting it in their SIS, Student Information System. They're collecting it in different systems, in Excel, in Word. All of this is data about students. And at the end of the day, is to inform the practice for student support. I'm just going to go to the next one. This is almost similar, but much more focused on the left-hand side when we see the student data. And really, there is lots of data. If you look at the top, if you want to look at the top part in here, from this top part is more numerical data, meaning numbers, 90% coming 90% on his math, or somebody who is at reading level and so on. But below that is lots of student support. And student support meaning lots of text, lots of strategies that we provide to students for them to go to achieve their goals. And this is usually written by a teacher or by the consultant or by somebody at the school to support students. The same thing, what we're talking about, we want to bring all this together for provide better prediction and recommendation for student success. Now, I would like to stop here and ask if there is any questions, and everybody dealt with student data before in school. Any questions at this moment? No? Okay. I'll continue. Now, this is something you already know. Maybe you could teach me a little bit about. At the end of the day, we need to train the data, right? And this is the key. And we have lots of data in schools. And we'll talk about a little bit about the challenges later on about this data. And the goal is to get to a point where we model it and we deploy it, and we'll be able to get the result that we want. And one thing that we need to think about as a teacher or as the professional at the school, AI shouldn't take over the decision making. Remember, should augment, highlight the issues that they have. And this is something is very, very important. And this is some of the fear the school system have. Are we taking away the decision making of a teacher, for example, right? AI here is really to augment and to clarify certain data or certain conditions. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about what we need to consider when we're implementing AI in schools. Privacy, for sure, it's regarding student data. I know, for example, Amy is doing initiative to work with school teachers to train them, kind of AI literacy and so on. Now, that teaching is very important, or that AI literacy is very important, but we need to worry also about where teacher could move that data, how they are pushing this data. Are they pushing it on the internet, pushing it in an open systems? Student names, other information, and so on are very important. So we need to think about framework. For sure, when it comes to bias, and we'll talk later on about data quality, the bias has to do with basically we're humans. We look at things in a different way when it comes to making a decision. So if we're making support comments about the students, sometimes depending on how the teacher feels, and this could be reflected in the text and the information about the students. Now, this is an interesting one, academic integrity. For sure, learning is changing, you know that already. Learning is changing for all of us. But think of what ChatGPT could do right now writing a paper. I know this is a simple example, but the question is, can a student write a paper in school in grade 6? If they're using ChatGPT, basically, they are not going to go through that learning process. What it means in here, when I talked about assessment has to be consideration, assessment have to be changed. The way teacher have to ask the students, how can you write that paper, or maybe come to class to defend that paper and so on. I'm not an educator, but this is a challenge that the school will have right now. More importantly, transparency. Transparency meaning I need to let to know the teacher, and the teacher need to know that students are using AI. Now, I'll use an example about myself. I made a speech. English is my third language. 4 a.m. in the morning, I had to write the speech for 9 a.m. So I wrote it, and I put it in ChatGPT. It was very good. I had to change 2 words, right? Better than my English. So I made the speech, but after, and I had 180 superintendent and associate superintendent and education leader across Alberta, and I said, at 4 a.m. in the morning, I wrote this, and I put in ChatGPT. And I was trying to make 2 points. One point is transparency. In education, specifically K-12, school system need to know where AI is being used. Second is, am I getting to my goal faster? And this is what AI allow us to do. We're going to get to the goal faster through writing, but through other things, decision making and so on. So those 2 things are important, but most importantly is the system need to know what tools we are using within the school system. Now, in our conference, we had Dr. Sarah Eaton from UFC, University of Calgary. She's an education professor, and she basically put in some of the key kind of outcomes or description on how AI could be used. At the end of the day, for me, it's here. The last one I like very much. AI is not going anywhere. We must learn how to work with the new technology, not against it. And in the conference, she said to all of us, AI is here, deal with it. And she's telling the basically educator, meaning we cannot, and I know, I'm sure right now you're hearing the news in Ontario about the phone, right? It's a cell phone restriction and so on. So we're going back in circle. I mean, the AI restriction would be interesting. We're not sure if this is going to happen. Most likely it will be framework of usage. But this is very important because we need to be open. We need to deal with it. But we need to know what it is, and when it comes to the school. Any questions? Now, another consideration we need to do, data quality. And when we talk about data, we're talking about teachers creating that data from attendance to grades and so on. Now, at university, grades usually is 60, 70, 80, 90%, right? In schools, there's something called outcome-based reporting, which is really about the outcome for a certain curriculum outcome, which is different levels and so on. And also there are benchmark about how the students are learning. So sometimes the decision-making of the teacher affects the way the data is, meaning our data might not be very 100% clean. So if we want to use AI, we want to ensure data as clean as possible. So standardizing that data. Another thing we need to consider experimentation. I read a paper for Conference Board of Canada, and they had some recommendation. One of them for companies is experiment. Another one is train your staff. And another one is think of the new generation. And new generation is the K-12. And really, the experimentation allow us to get to a lesser level of anxiety of what AI is, specifically in school. Meaning, worried about how students learn, worried about jobs, meaning are going to take away the job of the teacher and so on. So this is something to think about. Another thing also, having AI expertise in the school districts. And now we're seeing it more and more. People are talking about it. And what does it mean, AI expertise? It's not only an AI engineer, somebody who understands the processes of the school system, education side, and also the business side, and able to talk to everyone, all the stakeholders within the schools. Now, should they be in an IT department? And this is another also questions. Is it a technology thing or it's a business curriculum thing? So this is something that where school are trying to figure it out. AI literacy, we talked about it a little bit. What I want to show a little bit here is some of the things that happened last 3 months in Edmonton. So we did our conference. I went to the ML Foundation for executive at AMI, but next week there is the AI Summit, and we created also a LinkedIn group to bring in all educators across Alberta, also across Canada. So every month we'll have webinars and so on, focusing on AI in K-12 education. So when I say community in action, it's us, all of us here. So for me as a parent, schools are important because this is where the next generation is. AI is going to change things for sure. I want to make sure that is changing it in the right way and it's used in the right way. And I think knowledge sharing and then making many people aware of what AI is, it's important. I think we mentioned Osmar before. He came in, I invited him, I know he's very busy. He was able to come to the March 20th events, and he was one of the panelists. And everybody loved him, not because it's on education. He gave example in different industries, and that's important. Make anxiety about AI less and less, specifically about losing their jobs. And this is where lots of educators worry, basically this might be happening. Now, some of the data strategy. Now, I'll go back to my nice image about AI. Now, when we talk about the graph I showed you about the data, we're talking about one school district. But think of if Alberta schools, they came together, right? Will the AI model will be better? Prediction will be better? Yes, no, yes, okay. I'm looking at Mihadi saying yes, so I agree. So this is, and when I was last time meeting with educators, I mentioned this. And this is controversial because now we're saying we're going to be using Alberta student basically outcomes and all that data to make prediction, for sure without their names. For this to happen, for sure there have to be policies and agreement between the school district. But these are the kind of things we need to think about, because a school district of 3,000 students is different than a school district of 100,000, like Edmonton Public, 115,000 students. They have 10 years of data, and you could imagine the amount of data will create a good ML, basically algorithm, and also prediction, proper prediction. So this is something we would need to think about. This is part of my job to kind of let people think about this. And at the end of the day, it's a school decisions, and also could be education ministry decision. And centralizing data, meaning putting it all in one place when it comes to all data about student in Alberta. And here I'm jumping to this, but really thinking about the centralized, the decentralized, we already see it in terms of even when we're building even a regression model for a small school district or predicting, for example, success, we see the amount of data that we have is important. As you know, in statistics, that's very important. We want to make sure that we have access to bigger data and so on. Now, all of you know about neural network, and really what we're trying to do with this when it comes to AI in schools is think about basically all the support data that we have, meaning there will be certain ways of predicting based on the text and how things are written to be able to get to a result that could be appropriate for that particular student. Now, I did mention this in terms of what AI is, in this case, augmentation. I really like the word augmentation because it's always put the responsibility about decision-making on us. We just need to be engaged with the data and need to understand what it is. It's going to augment my knowledge about something, but it's not going to take away my decision-making, and that's very important. Now, I'm going to jump from this here, but I want to go back to this and jump to the last one in here. And this is what I was talking about, where if we bring all this decentralized, if we want to call it data within school districts, with all data that I'm collecting, from my experience, because I work closely with K-12 schools with their data, almost 80 to 90% of the data they collect is the same. And it's not a question that's standardized, but also same thing, they're looking at grades, outcomes, support, special education, and others. And this model, if we're able to build it based on this amount of data, will do better prediction and will be better model for basically for students and also for teachers to be, make support or provide support for the students. Now, for us, next step. So before I go to the next step, looking where we are. We're already working, I have basically machine learning engineer working on building models. But one of the things we're trying to do, we're not trying to do it as a company in the corner by ourselves. The key is to collaborate with the school districts, talk to them about the pain point. Although we understand some of the pain points because we work with them, we need them to be partners because we want to reduce their anxiety about what AI is, but also to build their knowledge too, because it will be easier for the future to work with them when it comes to new problems and so on. So this is very important. Now, I put Amy's word there, and Calvin is over there. I should maybe put IRAP beside that. So, no? Okay. So one of the things we're also doing as part of this project, we'll be applying to Amy project for project validation program that's available. And really what it is also getting access to another view of our project to look at it, and we'll be able moving forward. For us, AI is about also people, it's about you, because about the knowledge, about the way you look at problems. I just came back, I don't usually like to say where, I say I was in Boston, and that's 70 people, a great participant of a course, and one graduate student, he wrote on the board computer science in red. And he X'd science, then he X'd computer, and he's saying, it's not about computer or science, it's about people. And his point is from all of this, and I've been in the last 2 years listening about specifically professors in AI, not the professors in AI are philosophy professors, they are looking at the social impacts of what AI could be, and we need to always look at that. When it comes to K-12, the social impacts are very important. So understanding makes not only anxiety better, makes us better in terms of leveraging AI better and getting to our goals faster. And that's very, very important. So for me, really AI, although we could say this is another tool for sure, and it could be called something else 5 years down the road, but really it's a tool for us when it comes to school to support students and to get them on these chairs here and listening to other sessions and learning. And because I think learning at the end of the day is make us a better society and better understanding each other. I'm hoping AI, and I'm sure it is, specifically if it's positively used, is going to bring people closer together, but more importantly, project faster and more successful. Thank you. And I will take questions and so on. I have to switch.
Outstanding, Ahmed. Thank you.
Yes.
So, as mentioned, the floor is open to questions. Do you have any questions from the audience? Griselda, Isaiah.
Right, I'm Griselda. I'm from Isaac, a cloud service provider.
Yes.
Here, we're housed at University of Alberta. But my question would be kind of like a more your passion kind of thing. So my question is, why K-12, and also why now?
It's a good question. 1990, when I started my business, nobody would give me a job. I created my job. No, it's not a joke, it's true, right? But it's interesting you say that because I started in K-12, not in programming. I started in management of networks and so on. But in mid-90s, lots of problems would come to me about data, right? And the first problem we solved was we created a software for reporting for First Nation special education across Alberta for the federal government. So we started there, and we realized basically, well, we could solve that problem to school districts and so on. And school districts, even right now, they have systems, but many of them would use Word and Excel as a way of managing data. Now less and less, right? So, and the goal of my companies, still it is to inform practice and informed decision making. While AI is basically, it's all about why now when it comes to AI is really, it is a tool, if you want to call it a tool, to make that happen faster and better. So.
It's a great question and a great example in that your company, Intellimedia, software company, empowering for student success. You can talk more about the specific software it provided, but it wasn't a company that decided to, AI is cool, let's find a use for it. It's a company that data is important, what's the best tool to help empower the students, and you come to AI and in fact even spun off an additional company that will work together with the school systems on that. So can you talk about your base software that you have and perhaps how that can grow, or other systems in the education system that might use AI?
Perfect. So in any schools, like university, they have a registration system. But in schools, it's called student information system, where grades and everything happens, and lots of collection of data. Our company came in to augment, I think the word augment, I'm using it a lot, to the SIS, meaning we created another software that to allow to collect more data about students, which schools were already collecting, but they're collecting on paper, on Excel, all of that. And what we've done is, one of the success that we had is integrating our software with the existing system they have. So there's less duplication of data, less data entry, double entry, and so on. So you have better quality of data and so on. Now, it's not that I woke up in the morning and I said, yes, we want to be there tomorrow over there, but really we learned also from our clients. We learned their pain point, but we need to be ahead of them and react to those pain points. Even when we talk about size of school districts, even a small school districts of 3,000 or 2,000 have the same issues about data as the big districts. So they have the same issue. So if we solve the small school district problem, we're able to sell, and we were able to be successful. And Edmonton Public is our clients. They have, they use our system for data management and dashboarding and so on. Not AI yet, but really, and this is where we were able to listen to our clients and provide the solution they need and so on.
Very good. So, I have a question in the back. Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
Can you talk a little bit about your company?
Okay, yes, thank you. My name is Jennifer. I'm the CEO of Discover Coding. We teach young kids how to create with coding technology from ages 5 to 15. So we're already introducing them to some AI and what it is and just trying to grasp the potential of it. My question for you, Ahmad, is this is a really incredible vision. Where are we actually on your timeline? So you're gathering data like machine learning, like when do you possibly predict that you see teachers actually making decisions on their students using AI? I know they're using all this data, but
Yeah.
I'm curious what you guys.
From what I showed you is to make decision on data that already exists in the schools, right, collecting. So within 6 months, we will have algorithm to do that, to be tested in the schools. And the idea is to also test it collaboratively with them, because we want to make sure we have them on our side. When I say that, it's a sensitive subject, this AI, right? So this is what, if they know more, it's more comfortable for them, but also we're working collaboratively with them. So this is when it comes to data. But there is lots of AI being used as even for teaching, right? Which we are not expert in. So even tutoring and all of those kind of things already happening in school, different software and so on. And it's important for schools to understand how those tools could enhance the learning of their students, but also they need to prove that, meaning by saying, well, did it really enhance the student learning? And that's by collecting also data on that and so on. So.
One more question.
Yes, go ahead.
Is there like a country or province that have taken much greater strides in incorporating AI in schools? That just curious.
It's a very good question. Last year, Alberta had there's a conference called ATLE, which is Alberta Technology Leaders in Education, and they brought a professor. I forgot the name of the professor. Patrick, I think his first name, used to be with DeepMind. I think. Yes, sorry. Thank you. And then he was the speaker.
Daniel J or Daniel
This
Jawad?
is my son. I thought I did.
University students, so that's what it is.
So sorry about that. So this is a year ago, and I was surprised. The whole day was about AI, and the discussions start happening, right? And then you could see from what I showed you there was 4 events right now in the last 3 months, and more events to come. In other provinces, the same thing are happening. Now, I go to a conference called ERDI, which is a panel of superintendents. So I have 5 superintendents, 2 of those panels, and I asked them a question about AI at the end. I was shocked the way how comfortable they are with AI personally, but they are struggling how it's going to be implemented, right? And this is a discussion about implementing from the education side, meaning the learning, all the way to the decision making, right? So, Alberta is, we are not a very large province, but we're very dynamic. Amy is here, computer science is here, we have great people, and I think connecting the community together, meaning part of the things is not, one company or 2 companies could do everything. All of us could do, because all of us also are parents, but we have experts. This university is a great university, and also, again, Amy, it's providing support for schools in Alberta. Yeah.
So it's receptive, but they want to be responsible.
Yes.
And that's why you had mentioned when you first put up this conference that happened in March, you were really surprised at the number of people who are interested in attending. So can you talk a little bit about that, Jeremy?
Yes, and about 4 years ago, I put in a conference called, it was Education Analytics, and I did actually invite Osmar. It was in Calgary, and COVID happens after that, so it's like the world changed. And when I did this conference, I collaborated with CAS, which is the College of Alberta Superintendents. They had a conference, and we did a pre-conference, 1 day, 1 full day. And we had 180 people registered, and half of them superintendents, associate superintendents. So you have the top people in Alberta in education. I was surprised. I was very happy. But most important, their engagements, their questions, meaning they want to do something. Now, the answers are not only with me and with 1 person or 2 persons, is with them, but also that community of educators need to enlarge itself to connect to university, connect to specialists. Dr. Sarah Eaton, who is an education professor, but also work with academic integrity, is telling them basically AI is not all cheating, right? You need to know what AI is to be able to implement it or integrate it in your classrooms, and that's key. So it's all of us in the equation, I guess.
Very good. Question, go ahead.
I actually got 4 questions, but
Yes.
I'll just ask 2 for now.
You could ask them.
First one will be, in my outsider perspective, learning is both about the student as well as the teacher, and then the interaction between them. I haven't seen the diagram closely, so have you incorporated some part of data from the teacher side as well, and combine it with the student side, and then see how the interaction goes?
Okay,
Is that part of your project to look at?
very good question. It's not part of the data that we have, but also learning management systems are happening in schools, like at U of A, for example, of course, we'll have the online portion of it. But in regular school right now, online learning, it's kind of a hybrid learning. And the interaction between the teacher and the student in that environment, that information could be collected and could be part of here, which is not in what you see in there. We're thinking about it, and this is something that we would want to integrate in the future. And when it's talk about LMS, it could be Moodle, D2Learn, and then I'm not sure what university here is using, but really, and those interactions are going to be normal for the future to enhance the learning of students outside the classroom. So, good question.
Sure. So I guess my second question will be, are you able to discover some, or if it's a goal of this project, to discover some insights between the different groups of students with their outcomes? Say, what are explain what the difference is, and then maybe explain also the recommendations as well.
Yes, and this is not a tricky question, but it's also sensitive questions. But in school, K-12, they say ELL student, English language learner, meaning sons and daughters of immigrants who English is not their first language. And in school, they group them, they support them, and also they want to see the result. Same thing with FMNI or First Nation students and so on. But really any type of grouping that needs support. And it doesn't have to be a specific group. That could be like immigrant or FMNI. It could be students who are in special education. The curriculum have to change for them or have to be adapted, I should say, to be able to let them be as part of the grade and be part of the classrooms. Data is going to also, AI is going to allow us to see the data also differently, meaning we might discover things in there. And this is something that in the next 6 months, like I said, in terms of that, to be sharing it also with the school districts. And part of our goal is to get the school districts to be working closely with us so they could be part of that experiment and the success, and they see the result of that. So.
Good question.
Good question.
When you had said, because it's better if all the data's together, and Mahadi was saying, yes, more, volume of data, better model. But I was saying, maybe if the context of the data is not known and you just mush it all together, then you don't know what's causal. So it's great to know that there's contextual data.
For sure.
And challenging whether that context premises are appropriate or need to be updated. Or again, this is for student success, so you're trying to get everyone successful.
For sure. And one last thing I say, I'm not psychologist or an expert, but professional judgment are important. We talk a lot about doctors and then imaging, right? Making decision based on AI, saying, well, look at those 5 ones. But at the end of the day, the doctor is making a decision. Same thing with the teacher in the classrooms. They need to question the data because they know their student better. And that's key, right? So if it's AI or before AI, and so on.
Good. Good job then.
Related to the last question, so my question will be very simple, but I'm going to talk more before the question.
Okay.
So in the diagram you mentioned at the very far right, it's about the support student success.
Yes.
And then, but in my understanding, it can be like success can mean so many different things. It's like, for example, like parents might want successful career, teachers might want like curious students, or maybe even some communities talk about neurodiversity or like those kind of things that we need to pay attention. So the question is, when you say about support student success, does it depend on the data? Like you see success depending on what you have, like the AI is looking at what they already have, or you have like different rules about it, like based on what the client asked, like meaning the school asked?
It's a very tricky and good question. So this is a very good question. So success is not I define it, or the model define it. It's going to be defined based on what the school system look at what success is, right? So, for example, in school, there are students who are not going to graduate with a diploma, let's say. They're going to graduate with certificates. And there is a reason for it because they decided or they have certain, they want to be in trades and others and so on. So I think success also depends on basically what are the goals of those students. Now, I started my business in special education or inclusive ed. And in there, inclusive ed, every student have a plan. And I wish they have it for every student because this is where we'll show basically what's the goal for the students and where they want to reach. And every student, other than reading and writing, but there are certain skills they need to have, but that success also depends on that. So really the school system now are more flexible, right? Some students are coming to university, some students going to NATE, some students going to trades, and some students going to the market after high school. So, and success is defined by that. But one thing, and I'm not an educator, involvement of parents and students in that discussion what success is very important because we want to support our kids and make them feel good about themselves as they move into society after school.
Very good. Okay, I think I'm going to close off the questions now because I see that there's a lot number of time people have to leave. But,
yes.
But everyone is welcome to stay and talk to
yes, for sure.
Ahmad afterwards. I will say that some of these companies are currently hiring, so any students here feel free to tap on Clinesys, on Intellimedia, on Discover Coding and others for any current work opportunities. Thank you everyone for joining us, and everyone please help me thank Ahmad.
Thank you.